All right. Welcome again, everybody, to the XExamine podcast. Hope you are all doing well in these turbulent times. We hope that you're doing okay.
Absolutely. Hopefully, your
How
house
do you?
wasn't invaded this morning by a man wielding a hammer and attacking your spouse while shouting your name.
Jeez, what the?
Yeah, I mean, I
Who,
was just as surprised, I think, as anyone else to wake up this morning and see that Paul Pelosi was assaulted by a man wielding a hammer in his San Francisco home while this assailant was yelling for his wife.
oh my gosh! So he's yelling for Nancy Pelosi while he's hitting and like assaulting Paul.
Yeah, according to
That
CNN, it's very strange the way that the police chief kind of described the incident. Um, of course, there's only like blurbs here and there, and we're kind of piecing together the story as it's so current. But the police chief William Scott provided more details on the sequence of events in the attack of the husband of the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Scott said when officers arrived at the home, they knocked on the door, and the door was opened by someone inside. Officers then stood at the threshold and watched as Pelosi and another man struggled over control of a hammer. They shouted for both men to drop the weapon, but the intruder wrestled the weapon away, hit Pelosi in the head at least once, and at that point, officers ran in and tackled the man.
what the hell? Who opened the door?
They said someone from
Just
the
somebody
inside.
inside?
Yes. Yes, and then
I wonder, is that is that just a double entendre for inside job in the government? I have no idea. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine seeing that and just anybody
so
trying to piece together the puzzles of this. It's like a mix of crazy people and high level government official relations mixed in with local police.
so here's the strange part too, is that they said that the individual who was identified as the suspect in the assault, he was I can't quite tell from the way that this article is written as if they picked him up later on. But then the details of the story don't match up. Because did the
That's
escape? They didn't actually even say that. Like it sounds like police jumped in, wrestled him, and now they have this man. I mean, he just has a hammer. It's not like this is he has a hammer and he's wrestling it away from a geriatric old man who was also hit in the head with it. So I mean, like something about this is not
that's
adding
so
up.
strange. Yeah, does it say like who called for the police, or that seems strange to me? Like if I were having an altercation of some sort with somebody, it's like, hold on a second, let me open the door. All right, let's get back to the brawl.
Yes, even stranger, Paul Pelosi apparently called 911 with a coded message that led to his rescue.
Interesting. Okay, so he felt maybe if we assume those things to be true, guy's in his house, he's like, something ain't right. I'm gonna call the police, but I don't want to like tip him off. This guy who's probably off his rocker, so I don't want him to
Yeah.
get frisky because I think he has a hammer. I'm not even sure what to say to that. I'm just like still processing it. It's just a kooky event.
Yeah, it just seems so strange because it's like I can't imagine what went down inside that room, right? So it's like, okay, Paul's there. Is he listening to this guy break in? And so he makes like a quick call and then he confronts the man when the man starts shouting, "Where is Nancy?" Police arrive just as they're wrestling. I mean, like, I guess that theoretically could happen. It just seems like because it's so piecemeal, it feels like such a strange series of events that lead up to this.
You're right. You're right. We're getting like snapshots without the letters in between. We're like we're doing odd numbers and we need the evens. as well to make like a serial chronological timeline of and order of events, and we're missing pieces of that puzzle to just like figure out
Yeah.
or to even read, okay, what happened, and then we can figure out why this happened or think about why that happened.
I think
Um,
in addition, why it seems so strange to me is, like, okay, so the guy's off his rocker. He's probably very upset. I don't think he's like a super dangerous, hardened criminal though, because he comes in with a hammer and he can't beat down an 82-year-old man, despite being 40 years his junior. I mean, so like
oh,
theoretically,
40
like,
years is junior.
yeah,
Okay, so the other
yeah,
guy is 40s in his 40s.
yeah. He's according to CNN, he's 42 and Paul Pelosi's 82.
Okay.
I don't know
Yeah,
what
that
kind
does
of
change the story. So it's not just like, I can see how that changes the story a little bit, or at least the dynamic, rather.
I think it's one of those that just like contribute more to its strangeness. Like I'm not even really making any sort of like hints or qualifiers here, just because it's like to me, without more information, you could see where this is like looking kind of weird. Like maybe there's a huge power dynamic that I'm not aware of. Maybe Paul Pelosi's like very fit. I don't know. I know he was involved in that DUI not too long ago. So
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
but I actually wondered this morning too before I learned any of the details. Of course, we'll know more later on if any of that was involved or what could it possibly be. Like it could be where um no, like CNN is trying to make this seem like it's very ideologically motivated, and it sounds like it is if the guy is asking for Pelosi because obviously her ties as being House Speaker and whatnot, but
Sure, that's a pretty likely scenario, even if there are other potentialities there. A couple permutations of how that could play out. It is also just strange that what led up to those events? How did this guy end up in the house?
yeah,
And
why did Paul have to call the police? Was his house not under any sort of security?
oh yeah, that's a good
You know
point.
what I
That's a
mean?
good
Like
point. I
it,
should have asked about like security. I mean, surely it's a nice house, nice neighborhood, probably well, almost undoubtedly has a security system, where you break a window or open a door that's under alarm system, it's going to set something off or notify people, or some sort of armed or unarmed personnel. Yeah, it does seem strange that somebody as high profile as him would just be alone. But I guess it could happen. But I don't necessarily know how other people choose to live their life or how things typically play out at that level.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like they're in a pretty exclusive neighborhood in San Francisco, which is, you know, the norm for this family as they are very much involved in real estate. So I again, it was just like the details. I'm just like I have to keep questioning along the way, like what, like that really happened. I don't know. It kind of feels like if I'm trying to think of someone who isn't as famous as a president. I don't know, like who's been a
CEO
good
of something?
example?
Steve Jobs,
Yeah,
Bill
yeah.
Gates.
It's almost like a guy just like shows up inside like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates's house with a baseball bat and starts fighting with Melinda Gates or uh,
Where's Bill?
yeah, where's Bill? And then she has to wrestle him off, and then he gets a hit in before they're tackled by police. I don't know. It just seems like in the year 2022, it just seems like such an odd way of going about things. If anything, it kind of just goes to show that he seems a little bit more crazy, and it wasn't a thought out plan. Although
Have,
we don't have the details.
I think most 911 calls are public record, or you could probably get them through some sort of public records request. That would be interesting to hear what was described as a coded message. And I guess it would also be interesting to know, was it actually a 911 call, or did he call the police department non-emergency line? Like if somebody's watching you dial the phone, they can
Yeah.
tell if you're calling a 3-digit number or something with an area code. And every police department has a non-emergency line where you're still getting a hold of somebody at the police department, and maybe some sort of coded message, or yeah, I don't know exactly how you would portray to someone that you would like officers to arrive at your house without saying, I would like officers to arrive at my house.
Just imagine what's happening with this call. It's just this old man is like, no, 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 officer, you don't understand. The pepperoni is on the pizza, and he's got a hammer.
The eagle has landed and it has talons.
Oh man.
What happens when the salmon tries to climb the waterfall? Or I'm the salmon. I'm climbing the waterfall. I am the salmon. There is a grizzly bear.
I can just imagine too, like
The
all
grizzly bear is very close. It is
claws are
hungry.
out.
It's
That's
wearing a
probably their
utility
code
belt.
for yeah, it's probably for their code for IRS.
Oh no, they're gonna get audited. Send a couple cruisers. Yeah, I don't know. I don't mean to make light of his situation either. Like it's obviously it's understood that we don't condone violence, and that's like a really bad situation. We're just confused by it, and it's perplexing in nature in such a way that it really piques our curiosity and warrants further inquiry. So many of these details, from any perspective, just require some inspection and some analysis.
Yes, absolutely.
You can't.
Especially when you consider it compared to other like politically related attacks. Like, yes, we've had threats again kind of come through the news. There was that guy who was stalking Supreme Court justices around the Roe v. Wade decision.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but like even earlier this century, I mean, between like JFK and Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, like you have, I hate to say it, but like way more sophisticated attempts. And then this guy's sort of brutality is interesting because it's like, you know, um, Pelosi's a well-known figure, but I think if you're someone who doesn't really pay attention to politics all that much, I don't know how much of a uh, gripe you would have with her. Like it just doesn't seem as um, not interesting, but like as important as the president directly would be, or something like that. Could it just
This is
be
a
that she's local? I'm not really sure.
this is a good juxtaposition, because it has to take some amount of legwork to figure out their address, then figure out. I would assume that there was a plan to enter the house. Uh, even if it was sort of improvised, like there was some planning that it would take, some research that would have to be conducted to arrive at that point. So it is interesting that it was sophisticated enough to choose someone that specific, but unsophisticated enough to um, show up with a hammer.
Yes,
Like
yes.
what's the goal? Is the goal like you're not giving them a new roof? Um, it's I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, if you had some sort of ideology, or like a miniature manifest, what was he trying to achieve?
Yeah.
Just
From what
gonna
it sounds
voice his
like too,
complaints and
with CNN's coverage of it, I mean, they did do some dive into his social media, it sounds like, but then again, like I also don't know how sophisticated CNN's um journalism is, because they've proven themselves over the last 20 years to be completely unsophisticated in the way that they cover news. So I don't know if they're just finding other people that have his same name, or they're able to tie in pictures of his face. I mean, whatever have you. It just sounds like, he's it's funny too that they were like, he's posting memes about conspiracy theories, but it's all for things that are inside the news, like COVID vaccines and the January 6th attack and the 2020 election. And it's like, okay, well, those are just major things in the news. It's not like he's advocating for like Bigfoot's rise on like the third blood moon of October or something like that. It feels like just very normal things that he probably has, if he's a crazy guy, he probably has some crazy ideas on those subjects to begin with.
That's a really
So
good point, and people tend to be creating adaptations of their sociocultural surroundings in the same way that it never ceases to follow the trend that there are people that we interact with every now and then in our lives. Everybody's come across them where they're a little off and they speak to Jesus and Jesus speaks to them, and they have a dead squirrel on the dashboard of their car that talks to them, and they're a necromancer, and like they're clearly suffering from some mental ailments, and it's just like it's never original. It's like they say that they are Jesus Christ, or that Jesus Christ talks to them every day. And I'm not trying to talk down on religion, like maybe that does or does not happen in an actual capacity, but there are also people that claim that, where that is almost surely not the case.
yeah, but
I
only
would say that's
Protestants, right? You wouldn't hear that from any Catholic, let's be honest.
yeah,
That's
I
just
couldn't tell you.
my joking aside. It seems to be an interesting connection to what you were talking about just now with what just happened with Kanye West inside the news as well.
Oh,
These sound like features related to like manic episodes.
okay. Man, that is another just really strange event. And I did see something that was very thought provoking online, which is somebody was at a soda machine and they have their cup there underneath, and it's in the middle, and the person is making like the peace sign, and he's pressing two buttons of two different dispensers, which is meant to not make sense. And then one of the sodas is labeled um, losing a client because he wore a T-shirt, and then the other button is keeping Epstein as a client. And so it's an interesting comparison because it's saying Ye or Kanye. I think his official name is Ye right now, but I don't know if that's like his only name or his first name. I'm not entirely sure. But in any case, the person that we usually know as Kanye West, I think that his shirt said White Lives Matter. I don't think it said All Lives Matter. I think it said White Lives Matter. And I'm sorry if I didn't get that correct, but I think his shirt said White Lives Matter. And that's all to the story that I know of, is he wore that shirt and then he lost a bunch of deals, and
Oh no, no,
Etsy made.
no. There's a lot more to that. Unfortunately, it is not over the t-shirt. It is
Oh,
about a lot of like anti-Semitic claims that he was talking about, which actually I think led to some violent incidences regarding Jewish peoples. So I,
oh, okay. I didn't know that.
yeah, it is a that's another complicated situation that I also unfortunately do not know a whole great deal amount, but I do know at least that it is, I wouldn't say justified, obviously, because there's a double standard in media that if you're in media and if you're like a love child of the media, then of course you'll get coverage differently and everything as well. Like we don't even really know what's happening with that uh, Urza Miller or Ezra Miller, or whatever his name is, the Flash guy who's been arrested. Um, if you were just to compare the two, uh, you didn't hear anything about like all of these deals being canceled or anything like that. That might have occurred probably briefly, but certainly not on the same scale.
I see. Well, that's why I'm happy to be here. I'm always hearing more information, and there's almost always more to the story. So that's a that's a live example for you all.
That's
Upon cross
absolutely true. And
examination, I go ahead.
oh, I was just going to say, and it's I think people should know in the audience as well. It could just be like they're seeking out more information. So maybe these types of conversations aren't necessarily helpful, mainly because they're looking for the specific information that maybe a lot of people don't have. But I also think it's worthwhile to mention how thinking about these topics, even if you had all the information, was it really a good use of time? What does it really like at the end give you? I think it's interesting to use these topics as examples to talk about like other more interesting topics, like, you know, we've had a decrease in violent crime over the years, but it also seems like violence surrounding politics will always be a feature because there's a lot of stake at stake sometimes. So it's a interesting thing to explore, and I think everyone has a mixed relationship towards it because I think in everyone's heart they know that deontologically it's wrong to obviously commit violence against anyone, and yet at the same time, when you have an increasingly polarized uh, populace, it's hard to get away from the feelings of violence towards the other group.
Sometimes you just want to, you feel like so strongly about something that you just want to go in someone's house with a hammer and have a conversation with them. Strange times we live in, and probably these weird things happen in the past, to some degree. I don't know if more frequently or less frequently, but it is also a product of our instantaneous and really great transportation and communication network that people know about everything everywhere. Even things that happen on other continents in very, very rural areas. These events were still made aware of because all it takes is one reporter, whether he's a blogger or a vlogger or guy with a cell phone or a professional news crew. You could even have just like a professional workforce of 3 people broadcast some event that otherwise no one in history would probably ever know about or hear about. And now there's like video footage of it and audio. And it's being like broadcast from like some mountain in Afghanistan to the BBC in the UK.
Right, right. It's it's kind of terrifying to think about how as animals, we have this, it feels like we're constantly fighting against this cultural entropy that's slowly always kind of being eroded away. And we have to constantly sacrifice and give time and resource to that part of our society in order to keep it afloat. Because it's very easy to devolve into a tribal mindset, much harder to get out of it. It's even more difficult, though, I think nowadays because social media has leveraged what we know about human psychology and has weaponized it.
Yes, I agree with that. And I thought of a phrase that we should all keep in mind, not just any viewers, but just humanity in general, is it's like very difficult to create a great reputation, and it's very easy to lose your reputation. And I know a lot of actually like stand-up comedians have covered this essentially, where they say like, um, you can do many things many times, but if you f a horse once, you're a horse effer. And it's kind of like being a murderer too. You kill one person, and for the rest of your life, you're known as a murderer, or even just like very small, minor things. Like you could work really, really hard and be super professional your entire life, and then somebody like you have a slip of like morality or consciousness or something, and then there's the appearance of impropriety if you steal something from work one day, or even if it's like questionable circumstances and it looks like theft, whether it was or wasn't. Like people, oh, he stole from work, and this guy, like, he did this or this girl did that. And then there's like a very small singular action that can become defining of your character and overshadow the other vast majority of your life. Like, no matter how much you bend over backwards for other people or whatever else you do, the bad events tend to steal the spotlight
Yeah,
And
or
that's
even a
also what the
targeted,
media will just harp on.
yeah, or like even a targeted campaign against your character. I was thinking about Jeffrey Corbyn from the Labour Party in the UK, who I think a lot of us in the United States, we have unfortunately, um, and I don't actually believe this is true because I haven't had any direct proof of it, but like we associate him with anti-Semitism. Like we at least know that's the charge that's labeled against him, which has caused like I'm sure a ridiculous amount of not only stress but has resulted in his political career being greatly diminished. So I think it's like an interesting, even though I don't agree with the man's politics, I think it's very unfortunate that he had something like that happen to him. Because I really don't believe that he is like that. At least, like I said, I don't have any direct proof of what he said being directly anti-Semitic. Because I don't believe that if you're against Israeli policy, that automatically makes you anti-Semitic. But the campaign that was done against him, I think, has just kind of shown that sort of like brutality sticks. And despite how advanced we think we are, we still have these this like know-how of the witch hunt being a very savvy political tool even in the modern era. It could be even exasperated by use of social media and technology, no doubt.
A lot of factors there, multifactorial. If it bleeds, it leads. We want to hear about blood and gore and immorality and impropriety. We don't want to hear about how the Girl Scouts made their numbers for cookie sales, as awesome as that news is.
Yeah, yeah, and that is actually the thing that's going to have to change. It's, social media, I don't think is turning us into monsters. What it is it's become such an effortless gateway for us to access those darker points of our personality.
Dang. Words of wisdom right there. And this could also be like a segue into something that I think is terrifying, which is in the future. I mean, we've seen just how much of everyday life is recorded and immortalized for better or for worse. And people change their thoughts over time. And certainly the younger we are, the more stupid things we say without a lot of thought later on. The number of revealing pictures that people have sent to people that they later wish, wow, I wish I wouldn't have sent that because now it's just replicated just so many times across so many servers, across so many phones. Like there are so many things that you can never take back.
Mhm.
And just you saying anything, whether in text format and it gets screenshotted or a post on social media, it's just really a wild world. And I mean, people have introduced evidence to Congress where they have altered like evidence, and it's so easy to like even just open up like a simple computer program and delete one word, change one word, and then even if it later turns out to not be true, because none of almost no news organization really ever goes back on any story and says, "Hey, by the way, this was not correct, and this is what it really was," or they just never seem to follow up on any errors, or it's just like time marches on. And with
Yeah.
increasingly like everyone who runs for office in the future will have an insane huge digital footprint, and it will just be like I don't know how anybody will ever have a pristine record because you can slant anything, as well as people say stupid shit, and then we get older and hopefully we say less stupid stuff. But the fact remains that there's this picture from 1974 of somebody in a Halloween costume, and now I'm going to be crucified for it, and it's going to cost me my future career. It's like even in 1 year, people can change a lot. I'm not saying everybody's a saint now and everybody can change, but everybody changes over the course of their lifetime, and you're introduced to new ideas, and I don't know, just anybody can think about every 2 years how much they changed in their ideas and with new information. And it's really, I don't know what we're going to do, because there is something to be said about, yes, these events did happen, and I'm not saying that you should always just give somebody a clean slate, but it also has to be balanced out with the realistic probability that somebody has changed since 1987.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're saying right now is incredible and definitely an avenue that's extremely pertinent. I mean, thinking about our generation in general, um, we're going to have even more obstacles and hurdles to overcome because even though we know, you know, we grew up with social media, but we were still around from when social media didn't exist. And so we were able to hopefully build in a little bit of those like psychic controls where we don't just post what's ever on our mind. But for someone who came after us, I don't think that exists, especially because parents have kind of given up the wheel, just getting their kids, on technology and social media like as early as possible to shut them up essentially. So you have no idea what these kids have really been doing online for the past 15 or so years. And not only am I worried about their future reputations, but there's also this double edged sword of if you're not on social media, you're kind of not a person either.
Yeah,
And
you're
so
really left
there's,
out,
yeah,
and
so you have
you
this double
seek
edged
that
sword.
social.
Yeah, you have this double edged sword where it's like you can't even just shut off social media to solve this problem because you still need to campaign if you want to run for office. So you still have to be a somebody. I just fear that whoever that person's going to be is going to be like so manufactured and have like this, extreme sort of psychology to them that it'll either match the future age or will kind of prove itself to be disastrous.
Wow. And I admit that I don't really understand cyberbullying, but I'm also an adult, so I didn't really experience that. And maybe that was just my personal lack of experience, or that I was able to avoid it, because, as you said, it was social media was around for us, but it was around in a different way, and it wasn't quite as pervasive. And even though uh, we all had access to this content, it just, there wasn't Twitter and Instagram, and
Yeah.
it was like, yeah, we're just like inundated by it, completely surrounded, and you're forced to take sides on everything, and we're just bombarded with information. And the younger you are, probably the less likely you are able to handle it, and the harder it is to resist the equivalent of the mob mentality. It's really really hard to go against and have your own opinion and stand fast, in the same way that it would be hard to not have a profile on some site that everybody else in your class has, because you're just literally left out of the social sphere. And that might be fine for adults or people who are like really really introverted, but there are really big consequences for that, and especially just being young, because
Yeah.
you're not usually um hardened, and you still care more.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of all this, too, we're talking about we grew up with the technology, which means that the technology for the period of time that we were growing up with, it had to become more sophisticated over time. So I feel like we were able to kind of have an adaptive immunity. Whereas,
Mm.
like, you put in like a small child who has no, psychological defenses for nearly anything, very impressionable, um, being just absolutely steamrolled by the sophisticated version of the technology that has been rolled out.
Wow, yeah, they're walking in, they're jumping into water that's way over their head. Whereas when it evolved with us, we were kind of in the pool while it was filling up, and there was that interplay there.
Yep. Yes, and
So
there was, we just had the gift of time there.
yeah, it's like training with a martial arts partner, and you're both getting better at the same time. can't really get taken advantage of. And then this is like you're walking up, you're going into the beehive, and you just release the bees, and you're just overwhelmed. I mean, I can't imagine what that would be like to be exposed to so many things for the first time ever. Just shocking. I would just be shocked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, shock is definitely the word for it. I mean, we're talking about an attention economy in which we're all sort of on this strange treadmill in which the shock factor has to constantly be increasing because we're just becoming numb to whatever they're throwing at us. I kind of think about how the evolution of Adult Swim on Cartoon Network has gone from being sure like adult cartoons, but the amount of gore and like just ultra violence that you see on like modern day Adult Swim, I think really goes to show that sort of difference because we've become so accumulated to a certain type of entertainment
Wow.
that in order to keep pushing the envelope, we have really gone in some strange directions.
Oh, very interesting. I can't say I've kept up with it, but that makes sense. It's everything else has just become smaller sound bites, shorter sentences. Look at the clickbait on sites like, well, any news headline, or any video, any viral video. To get the clicks, the headline has to be startling in nature,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like this super long explanatory backstory. It's just they're all
Yeah, I
just like
mean,
stab wounds, just boom, boom, boom. Like this
I,
person's yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say like the thumbnails on YouTube are a great example of this on how like 6, 7 years ago, I don't think anyone really gave a shit about what a thumbnail was. The people who were successful at it did, though, and you could see that just its compounding success has sort of gotten to us to a place where the um, the most successful people at YouTube are using all sorts of like crazy, not only designs but like techniques too. I mean, like how many times have you gone on YouTube and they're just like, "This is the weirdest thing ever," and everything is just the most hyperbolic version of the lukewarm milk toast content they're about to give you.
I just learned yesterday that there's a Reddit for the red circle, which we've all seen the advertisements on the side or the bottom of a web page where it's a picture you clearly already know what the subject of that picture is, but they use a big red circle and then an arrow like this iPhone, you won't believe it. You're going to be shocked.
Mhm.
And it's like, or the somebody's about to step on something, or it's someone's face, and they're either extraordinarily surprised, and their eyes are wide open, and they're just scared of whatever content you should also be viewing, or like their hands on their face, they're sad. It's like always like the extreme of the emotion. It's never just like, here's how to correctly file your taxes this year in a timely fashion.
Yeah, or like this iPhone thing
No.
is actually like, the most normal update possible. It's like, oh, they increased the speed of the speed of their processor a little bit, RAM was updated.
Next iPhone expectedly better. meets next iPhone meets expectations.
Yeah. Yeah, but
No
they
news is
just
good
need
news.
people they just need people to click on it. That's just the whole goal and it's so apparent. Yeah, at the same time, it's difficult to figure out where this content is going because it feels like everything I watch is a fucking commercial. Uh, I have to watch a commercial just so I can watch the commercial that has the content,
Yeah,
and
and then
sometimes it's
they'll
frustrating.
they'll overlay an ad inside of an iframe on top of the video too, with a tiny, tiny, tiny X. Or if you're on your phone, before you've read even the first sentence, there will be 7 different giant pop-ups that take up half the screen's real estate. estate and subscribe to our newsletter. It's like, I didn't read the article yet. I have no idea if I would be willing to sign up for one of these millions of mailing lists of the daily newsletter. It's
Yeah,
we're in
yeah.
like
And
a
unfortunately, I actually think that this is a symptom because we were duped by free content, quote unquote free. It's like, wouldn't you rather pay for a better experience than this? It's like if I were to tell you that you can get a free car, but this car breaks down literally every mile that you drive it, wouldn't it just be better to buy a car that worked?
yes, there is definitely that debate, and sometimes I have gone for the paid services, and it has been very much worth it. And I can say for me, I had YouTube Premium. It was great. I loved not seeing ads before, during, or after, and I watched enough content. I consumed enough content that it was worth the money. And although I kind of don't like the principle behind um, paying to not see ads, because it's a from a business perspective, it just seems like, hey, we're going to get money from you, and it's kind of based on the premise that we don't believe in giving you things for free, which
But
they're
isn't
free.
that like respecting the content creator's time? Like I understand that like that's like the like consumer's interface with the platform, but like for the content creator to be like, okay, for me to make this content for you, I need to not have a normal job because this is my job.
Yep, that's fair. I cannot reconcile those things, so I should concede to you on that. And that's also why I was okay with paying for some subscription services. But some of them I think have gone ridiculous, like on cable, where before really everything moved onto the internet. I just remember my family was paying well over $100 for basic cable per month. The signal wasn't even that good, and you pay a lot of money per month and you still see a ton of ads. And it's not even that you see a ton of ads, it's they shorten your content. I remember watching Indiana Jones, and one of the fight scenes, it was really cut short, where Indiana Jones is fighting the giant Nazi guy in front of the plane. And like they'll tell you in the beginning of the movie, they're like, this movie has been allotted to fit the time. It's, oh, sorry, we couldn't fit the whole movie, and we only had this much time. It's
Right.
like this made up constraint. It's like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
we had to show you this many commercials, and so it was built around the content is there. It's not like we want to show you movies and then we also show you commercials. It's like we want to show you commercials, and to lure you in, we have to kind of offer you this content. But we're going to do everything we can to
Yes.
show you as little as we can to squeeze the sponge. I want all that. I want every last bit of water that's coming out of that sponge, and I'm gonna shake the sponge at the end to make sure. It's like when you're done getting the gas and you tap it, you get those extra few drops.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's all 100% correct. And I think there's got to be a better way of doing it. Now, the nice thing about technology is obviously if you have enough um, people that you could reach out to, the cost can drastically go down. And I feel like we'll have to be moving towards curation eventually. Um, I like the idea of a free platform, though, for people to really become discoverable on. But I think like past that, I think and I hope that our generations kind of get used to save our sanity. We'll have to move to curated platforms, and then you could just like review them after you're on them. You don't have to stay with them if you don't like that programming anymore. But I think the sort of like reliance on free stuff, like imagine you had access to free water, but that free water was like the Ganges River.
I know that there are phones that exist too. My friend bought a phone where it literally shows you ads because it made the phone cheaper to buy,
Right,
and
right.
that's that's the line that I can't cross for the
Yep.
savings. I will pay an extra $100 or $200 probably for a phone that doesn't force me to watch ads on its interface, like, oh, I'm gonna turn my phone on now. Oh, here's a forced ad. That I think is absurd, but that's just the way things are. We're
I mean,
plastering our entire.
you figured out how they're gonna get a lower price for an electric car in the future. I bet it's going to come with ads.
Uh, I already hear them on the radio. Now I'm gonna have them on my 15-inch touchscreen. I'm gonna be like trying to check my speed or something, and it's gonna be like there's gonna be a little countdown before I can skip the ad and see what speed I'm going.
I think it's one of
Because
those things where,
I don't know why people want to like move everything to the center instead of just have it be by the steering wheel. Because I'm
oh
looking
yeah,
forward when I'm driving, usually.
yep. I just can't wait for like that augmented reality to like start showing ads while you're driving.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have like hologram people feeding me crackers or something. Try this new
Yeah,
Triscuit.
that's going to be the increased danger of inflation too, because like pretty soon we're going to have to get to a point where you're going to have all of these luxuries, but these luxuries are going to be filled with nothing but advertisements. And I feel like we're quickly headed towards that territory. We can apply the brakes now, though, and I hope that with our generation and we keep having these talks, we'll be able to escape this fate. But it does exist as a possible future, I think, right now, and unfortunately, it also seems sort of likely.
So as this vehicle travels into the future, we just have to make sure that we keep it in the lane. Like we're obviously progressing into a different territory, new land, but also we don't want to go off the road completely
Yeah, yeah,
because it could
absolutely.
be destructive or a very unenjoyable ride. I want to be on that smooth paved surface.
Yes,
So there,
absolutely. But at the
it's
same
just
time, like we can only do that by having an idea of what's wrong, an idea of, what we're going to, or like something that we're going to anticipate dealing with later on. So we might as
and
well think about it and examine these ideas now.
I know competition can help keep they can improve competitors can improve each other, and they also kind of act as a check and a balance in a similar way that Apple products and Microsoft products have done, even though they're very different, but they're also very similar, and they both borrow ideas from each other, for to use a nice term, a constructive term. And I guess I could give a shout out to Odyssey. I saw that they are offering some sort of paid service now, and you can directly support content creators on there. So that'd be something I'm gonna check that out. I haven't been on there recently, but it seems like a intriguing platform and
Yeah.
competitor to other video hosting websites.
Yeah. I went on Rumble the other day just because I heard that they IPO'd, but they're not, they're still like sort of rough. I try to search for things in their search bar and I got people who are making like crazy weird videos, but it still doesn't really seem like up to snuff. And it's kind of like that unfortunate,
so, so Rumble's on the
weird.
Rumble strips.
Yeah, because like I think they're still trying to play that discovery game, where they're in between. There's almost like a sales funnel aspect to content, right? Because it's like you need to have discovery, which is why you need those open platforms on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and all those types of things, because that's like where you're getting your lead generation. And then after you sold them on the sort of content that you sell, then that goes to the sales funnel, which is like your Patreon or something like that, where they can get better versions of whatever it is that they like to watch at the price point that you're willing to sell them at.
That is fair. And one of the things that bothers me about going onto a website and immediately or very shortly after the page loads of being prompted to sign up for the newsletter is there is just so much content that I need time to decide because there's so much choice. So it's the same thing with paying for content. We're in a time where, for better or for worse, and it probably makes it very hard on content creators, we just need more sample size. We need more samples before we can make a determination because there's so much choice. Like if you wanted a car when Henry Ford was making the Henry T, or when the Model T by Henry Ford, sorry. Uh,
Henry T.
I'm having a stroke. Maybe I'm running for office in Pennsylvania. Um,
Ouch.
if you wanted a Model T in the past, that's what you could get, and it came in black. There weren't these options, so you didn't really need a big sample size. Hey, you want the car or not? Whereas
Yeah,
now
yeah.
there's so much content. It's like if you tried to draw that node out, that tree, it would just be like the most complicated game of chess. So many platforms, so many content creators, so many subjects, and there's only like the thing that has remained constant is there are only 24 hours in every day. So you
Exactly.
have everything is competing for your time. So everything is a competitive alternative in life. It's not even just direct competition, they're competitive alternatives. What else would I do if I weren't doing this?
Yes. Yeah, our attention span, our focus, that time allotted is the fundamental resource that I think a lot of people are not used to thinking about in terms of like, we think of in terms of dollars and whatnot, but it's really how many watching hours a day or listening hours a day that you can actually um, you know, use for the things that you actually enjoy that are important. But yeah, no, I completely agree. I also think that it's actually a wonderful time. Like I know it seems like some of the stuff that we talk about is cynical, but it's a wonderful time to be a content creator, I think. Because if you can prove yourself in the world of ideas, there will always be profit for you. And I actually think that now that we've kind of decentralized away from Hollywood and New York, it's become much more accessible to a ton of different people.
That is really impressive. The number of people that I personally watch, and they're one person, and maybe they have a small production team, or it literally is just themselves. Uh, and they make videos and they put them on YouTube, and they're popular enough to be paid for that. So they didn't have to create the website, they didn't have to maintain the website, they don't have to literally do anything except focus and create on their specific videos, upload them using someone else's service. They take like a small cut, I'm sure, and then they cut you a check. So that's pretty amazing. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
absolutely. And it's so fluid
that's
too. It's
the ultimate work
yeah.
from home job.
Yeah, it really is. I like and I want to transition to that one day for sure. I just need to figure out what is something that actually sells. Like, I have my own ideas on what I want to promote as an individual. I think that there's a lot of our classical literature and philosophy, which has been untouched by our generations, that, have decided that whatever's happening on TikTok is way more important than studying the classics, which I understand, but at the same time, like, I think there are ideas in there that are so useful to people's lives, like conversations of meaning and things that they obviously seem to, or at least even self expressed, that they lack, that could be helped in those ways. So, one day I hope to, and probably one day soon, hopefully, get on that track. But yeah, I mean, curation is also going to be a huge skill that people aren't I think thinking about too much right now that will be important later on. So it's not even if you're not a content creator, can you identify good content creators and rope them together and then sell them as a product to other people?
I think Cross Examine podcast should be on that list personally.
Yeah, as
That's
soon
what
as we
we're
get
trying
better at
for.
it.
We're trying. Yeah,
Yep, yeah. This is
we can
our
definitely make an
practice
attempt.
podcast, and I think it's going to be. I mean, obviously, it's already been a huge, I think, uh, amazing
Learning
practice for
experience.
us. Yeah, learning experience. That's correct. We'll
And
only
for the
get better.
viewers, and we appreciate all those viewers. Thank you for listening to us talk our way through a lot of these subjects, and as we gain our understanding, improve our understanding, Uh, it's like we're having a conversation with people that we don't know are listening, with people we do know are listening, and with ourselves all at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For all of our future conversations that will be nailed, stay safe out there from all those hammers.